English football has a major problem, and it's been an issue for over a decade now. Many clubs seem to find themselves stuck in a constant state of bouncing between the same leagues, but why does it happen? Well, to begin, it's crucial to grasp the structure of the football pyramid and the implications of promotion or relegation for the teams. The English football pyramid comprises of 7 distinct tiers, with the Premier League occupying the top and the 4 local national leagues at the bottom. In this video, our primary focus will be on the top 2 leagues, the Championship and the Premier League. Moving between each league is based on the amount of points that a team accumulate over the course of a season, with 3 points being given for a win, 1 point for a draw and 0 for a loss. While the system itself is not inherently problematic, the root of the issue, like many others, lies in financial matters. Promotion in football is undeniably attractive due to the financial rewards it brings. The higher a team climbs up the football pyramid, the more money flows in from sponsors, increased ticket sales and heightened visibility, resulting in a surge in merchandise revenue. Furthermore, when a club is relegated from the Premier League to the EFL, they receive parachute payments for the subsequent 3 years. This payment represents a portion of the Premier League's broadcasting revenue, providing a financial cushion that mitigates the impact of the reduced income from no longer being in the top tier of English football. To give you a better understanding of what the difference in figures is, within the Premier League, the average club value for the 23-24 season was €611 million. This is based on the market value of all the players on the teams. When comparing this to the Championship, 1 league below, the average club value for the same season was €91.3 million. This €509.7 million difference may start to give some idea as to why it's so difficult for clubs to stay in the same league they've just been promoted to. Let's analyse the previous season of the Premier League. That season's league table is displayed on screen now. The highlighted teams are the ones which have been promoted to the Premier League for this season. The values next to each club represent their total player market value for the season. Now let's rearrange this table in descending order of value. It becomes evident that clubs higher up the table possess greater value, although this is to be expected and fairly obvious. However, complexities arise when comparing individual clubs and where the money actually comes from. Let's take Manchester City and Sheffield United as an example. Firstly, let's bring back the club values. The second figure below each club indicates the average value of each individual player on the team. This leads us to question why there's such a big disparity between the financial resources of clubs that are within the same league, and as to why there isn't a strict cap on the amount a club can invest on player transfers. Now, while there's no strict salary cap in place, it's crucial to recognise that there are still financial constraints aimed at promoting fairness. For the 24-25 season, clubs in the Premier League are restricted to spending no more than 70% of their income on squad-related expenses. This includes player salaries, amortised transfer fees and agent commissions. This rule is intended to prevent excessive spending, but in practice it amplifies the advantage of the wealthier clubs. These clubs with their higher revenues can still allocate significantly more funds to building their squad, which in turn helps them maintain their dominance by winning league and cup titles. This cycle perpetuates the financial gap rather than bridging it. You might argue that it's not fair to penalise a club simply because it has more money to invest, and that's a valid point. However, the financial boost that these clubs receive upon entering the Premier League, while substantial, often isn't enough to secure their place in the top tier. When these clubs are relegated back to the Championship, their elevated value often allows them to outperform other teams, leading to an immediate promotion or at least a playoff spot. This cycle of promotion and relegation, driven by financial disparities, ensures that the same clubs often bounce between leagues without ever truly breaking through to become stable Premier League contenders. The constant yo-yo in between leagues has a profound impact on both the individual clubs and the overall health of English football. For the clubs themselves, the instability is a major issue. Imagine being a newly promoted team suddenly thrust into a higher league with a much tougher level of competition. You're expected to compete with clubs that have been established at that level for years, with deeper pockets, stronger squads and more experience. It's a daunting task, and it often leads to desperate measures. Many newly promoted clubs find themselves in a difficult situation. They need to strengthen their squad to survive in the higher league, but they lack the financial resources to compete with the established teams. This can lead to risky investments in players, often overpaying for players who may not be good enough for that higher level, or making hasty decisions on infrastructure improvements that may not be sustainable in the long term. The pressure to survive is immense, and it can lead to poor decision making. If these gambles don't pay off and relegation follows, the financial consequences can be severe. The club might be left with crippling debts, forced to sell key players at a loss, and even face the risk of falling into a downward spiral that threatens their very existence. This is where the parachute payments come in. a financial lifeline designed to cushion the blow of relegation and help clubs avoid the worst case scenario. But the yo-yo effect doesn't just affect the individual clubs, it also has a significant impact on the overall health of English football. Fans lose interest when their team is constantly bouncing between divisions and the league's competitive balance can be disrupted. A league with a few dominant teams and a large number of yo-yo clubs can become predictable and less exciting for fans. This instability can also make it difficult for clubs to build a strong identity and attract long-term investment. Sponsors and investors are less likely to commit to a club that is constantly in flux, and this can limit the club's ability to grow and improve. Additionally, this causes a financial gap between the Premier League and Championship to only widen, making it harder for these clubs to break through. There are several notable examples of this yo-yo effect. Between 2017 and 2023, Fulham epitomised this pattern, spending every season either being promoted to or relegated from the Premier League and the Championship. It wasn't until the 23-24 season that they finally found some stability, finishing 13th in the Premier League. Similarly, Norwich City and Sheffield United have also been caught in this cycle, frequently bouncing between the same two leagues as Fulham, albeit to a slightly lesser extent. In the lower divisions, Rotherham United provide a stark illustration of this yo-yo effect at work. Since 2013, they've found themselves repeatedly moving between League One and the Championship, never quite able to establish a firm foothold in either league. So what can be done to address this issue? Well, several solutions have been proposed, however none without some form of backlash or controversy. One idea is to implement a more rigorous financial fair play system, with strict controls on spending and more significant penalties for breaches. This could help level the playing field by ensuring that all clubs operate within the same means, but it also risks penalising the clubs that are financially well managed. Another potential solution would be to revisit the idea of a strict salary cap, similar to what's seen in the American sports leagues. This could help curb the financial dominance of the top clubs, but it would be a radical departure from the traditional model of English football and would likely face significant opposition from clubs and fans alike. A third option could involve increasing financial support for relegated clubs, potentially by extending the duration of parachute payments. However, this approach once again isn't without its issues, and likely wouldn't have too much of an effect. Since parachute payments are funded almost entirely by the Premier League's broadcasting revenue, extending these payments over a long period would mean that more clubs are drawing from this pool. As a result, the clubs that remain in the Premier League would receive a smaller share of the broadcasting revenue, potentially creating new tensions and financial imbalance within the league. Another potential solution might be to establish a separate league, either above or below the Premier League. However, those who recall the failed attempt to create a Super League will understand that this idea is unlikely to materialise, and even if it did, it probably wouldn't address the core issue at hand and could instead result in existing funds within English football being spread more thinly and potentially neglecting lower league clubs. Overall, it appears that any proposed solution comes with its own set of challenges. The yo-yo effect is a deeply complex issue driven by entrenched financial disparities. Whether the answer lies in strict financial regulations, increased support for clubs caught in this cycle, or an entirely different approach, one thing is certain: action is needed to address this ongoing problem. If you think you've got the solution, share it in the comments below. Who knows, the right person might just see it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.